Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is literally reshaping our world right under our feet, the AI arms race reality. It's this incredibly complex, multi-layered conflict that's driving technology forward at just a breakneck pace, and it's changing the whole shebang, from how massive businesses operate all the way up to global military strategy. So if you want to understand the actual on-the-ground forces steering the future of artificial intelligence, you're in exactly the right place. Let's get into it. Right off the bat, let me hit you with a number that should absolutely stop you in your tracks. $852 billion. That is OpenAI's recent post-money valuation, meaning what the company's worth right after their latest round of investors poured in their cash. I mean, think about that for a second. We're talking about a valuation for a single tech company that rivals the GDP of entire countries. This isn't your normal everyday investment cycle. This is unprecedented capital fueling a massive, high-stakes arms race. This kind of money is buying up insane amounts of computing power, the absolute best talent in the world, and research speed at a scale we've just never seen before. The stakes are monumental, and investors are essentially placing massive bets that artificial general intelligence is right around the corner. Now, to really grasp this, you have to understand that this isn't a single race. It's a multi-front war. So we're going to break this down into 4 key battlegrounds today. We'll look at the corporate triopoly, then the open source rebellion, move on to the speed versus safety trade-off, and finally, we'll cover the geopolitical battlefield. Starting with Section 1, the corporate triopoly and the battle for enterprise dominance. Okay, so right now, massive tech labs are fighting tooth and nail to build the foundational models that we use every single day. And the landscape, it's shifting way faster than anyone really predicted. When you look at the 2025 enterprise market share data, there's a super fascinating shift happening. Anthropic has actually overtaken OpenAI. They're holding 32% of the enterprise large language model market, with OpenAI sitting at 25% and Google at 20%. Now, wait, you might notice those numbers add up to more than 100%. Well, that's actually a crucial insight. It tells us that companies aren't just putting all their eggs in one basket and picking one winner. No, they're hedging their bets. They're running multi-provider strategies, basically using different AI models for different tasks across their whole business. What's really wild is that each of these big 3 players is fighting with a totally different strategic weapon. Google has this massive structural compute moat. I mean, they literally own the TPUs, those highly specialized microchips you need for AI, and the data centers, so they can actually keep up with the exploding demand. OpenAI, on the other hand, is just crushing it with developer momentum. Their GPT 5.5 ecosystem is basically the default for anyone doing heavy coding workflows. And Anthropic? Well, they're winning on enterprise trust. Their whole safety-first constitutional AI framework is deeply resonating with corporate buyers who are, understandably terrified of reputational risk. But we absolutely can't talk about these corporate giants without bringing up the ultimate wildcard in the room, Meta. Meta is playing a totally different game. They are aggressively open-sourcing massive foundational models like Llama. They're prioritizing scale, speed, and just pure competitive positioning over keeping their models locked up behind a paywall with strict safety frameworks. And this strategy? It is fundamentally shaking up the entire market and basically forcing everyone else to adopt on the fly. Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the open source rebellion and how it's commoditizing intelligence. So Meta's wildcard approach, it's not just a cute side story. This open source movement is actively commoditizing intelligence. It is a fundamental threat to the closed, proprietary business models of that triopoly we just talked about. For example, look at China's Moonshot AI. They released Kimi K3, which is a model that approaches top-tier frontier performance but at a drastically lower cost per task. And meanwhile, another Chinese lab, DeepSeek, is nearing $500 million, yeah, billion with a B, in annualized revenue. This whole open weight strategy, where the core neural networks are just freely available for anyone to download, is insanely disruptive. Think about it. If highly capable models are available dirt cheap or even for free, it completely erases those massive profit margins that the Western labs rely on to justify their sky-high valuations. You just can't price intelligence like a rare luxury good when the rest of the world is treating it like a basic commodity. But hey, this rebellion isn't just a Chinese phenomenon. Right here in the US, former OpenAI CTO Mira Murati launched Thinking Machines Lab. And honestly, their strategy is brilliant. They're offering a platform called Tinker, and the pitch is simple. Instead of renting your AI and handing over all your proprietary data to a giant lab, Tinker lets enterprises fine-tune their own open-source models, meaning they can train the AI on their own highly specific data and actually own it. So companies keep their intellectual property perfectly secure while getting models that run cheaper and often better than the general-purpose ones. It's a real game changer. Moving right along to Section 3, the speed versus safety trade-off, or what we might call the economics of doom. So with all this immense, crushing competitive pressure squeezing these labs from every direction, it's forcing some really dangerous economic decisions behind closed doors. And this leads us to a pretty heavy question, one that was recently posed by researchers in a National Bureau of Economic Research working paper. Does competition actually accelerate AI doom? Like, when the first firm to reach true artificial general intelligence stands to gain just unimaginable private wealth and power, does the race force them to move way too fast and exercise way too little caution? It's easiest to think of it like this. A tech firm has a fixed pool of resources, right? Compute, talent, time. If they dump those resources into speed, they maximize their capabilities. That gives them a much higher chance to actually win the race. But it directly increases the risk of catastrophic failure because they skimped on the safeguards. On the flip side, if they focus on safety, running deep control experiments to make sure the AI actually aligns with human values, they definitely lower the risk of doom. But they slow down. And if they slow down, they risk losing the market entirely to someone who didn't. Basically, it's a zero-sum game. Every single dollar spent on speed is a dollar literally taken away from safety. And the crazy thing is, the labs themselves know this. This isn't just some abstract academic theory. I mean, look at the OpenAI charter itself. They explicitly state, we are concerned about late-stage AGI development becoming a competitive race without time for adequate safety precautions. Existential risk from a highly capable, misaligned system isn't just sci-fi anymore. It is officially recognized as a legitimate, catastrophic threat by the exact same people building the tech. But to be totally impartial here, we have to look at the other side of this debate. Critics and researchers like Timnit Gebru and Emily Bender offer a really sharp counterargument. They argue that this whole framing of existential AGI doom is actually a deliberate distraction. From their perspective, focusing everyone's attention on speculative Terminator-style future scenarios serves corporate interests perfectly. Why? Because it pulls the public's eyes away from very real, present-day structural harms that are happening right now. Things like algorithmic bias, massive labor displacement, and systemic copyright infringement. All right, let's zoom out for Section 4, the geopolitical battlefield, superpowers and security. Because, this whole debate over safety scales up dramatically when we leave the corporate boardrooms and step onto the highest stakes reality out there, global superpower competition. Out here, AI is viewed as the ultimate strategic asset. To really grasp how serious this has gotten, we have to talk about laws. That stands for Lethal Autonomous Weapons Systems. These are weapons that use artificial intelligence to identify and kill human targets entirely on their own, with zero human intervention. Yes, we are literally talking about killer robots. The militarization of AI is absolutely no longer a theoretical concept. It is an active, ongoing reality in defense departments all over the globe. Just look at the timeline here. It's wild how fast this escalated. Early warnings about an autonomous arms race started bubbling up around 2014. Just 3 years later, in 2017, the U.S. Department of Defense launched Project Maven, specifically to integrate AI into military operations. Fast forward to 2023, and analysts are noting a massive escalation in a U.S.-China digital Cold War. And now, for 2025, plans for Project Stargate have surfaced. That's a staggering $500 billion Manhattan Project-style supercomputer initiative. It sounds like a movie script, but the sheer velocity of military AI adoption is very, very real. And what's really crucial to watch is how the major superpowers are deploying completely opposite tactics in this digital Cold War. The U.S. strategy is increasingly leaning heavily into restriction. They're using pre-release evaluations, very strict export controls on advanced chips, and gatekeeping the most capable models, all in the name of national security. China, on the flip side, is going a different route. Their leadership is aggressively pushing to distribute open-source AI as a form of global digital public infrastructure. They are essentially using open-weight models as a really powerful tool of geopolitical diplomacy, aiming to build influence and undermine American tech dominance worldwide. So I want to leave you with this ultimate question to take away from our explainer today. When you look at the billions of dollars flowing, open source rebellions commoditizing the tech, safety fiercely competing with speed, and superpowers actively militarizing the infrastructure, will the ultimate winner of this race be a tech corporation, a decentralized open source community, or a heavily armed nation state? It's a deeply fragmented, unbelievably high-stakes race, and whoever crosses that finish line first is going to define our entire century. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.